Hello, everybody. Welcome into The Cycle. I am Ryan Wormeli, joined as always by Mike Maher. Maher, it is the third straight week of us kind of approaching the show a little differently than our usual format. A couple weeks ago, it was the holiday with 4th of July. Last week, we had, kind of going into the All-Star break. It was a little weird, not having the upcoming week. This week, we don't have the previous week of games, right? Because it was the All-Star break. So we'll be back to our normal format of 3 different parts spread out on both audio and video starting next week. For this week, we're doing one episode of the whole week edition of The Cycle. We're going to talk some news and notes, kind of react to Home Run Derby, All-Star Game, MLB Draft at the top of the show. And then what we're going to do is a way too early 2026 baseball mock draft. Probably didn't need to say baseball. Everybody knows that for the show they're listening to. But yeah, we're going to do a 2026 early mock. We're going to do 2 rounds of that and just kind of take an early look at who the guys are that we think are going to be at the top next year and see where we go. I actually very specifically did not prep for that. I mean, obviously I have all the names in mind, but I didn't sit down and lay out a big board because I wanted to kind of feel in the moment. I wanted this to kind of be like a gut check, how are we feeling, less so than well, the numbers say it'll probably be this guy. Does that make sense? I wanted to be kind of shooting from the hip.
I personally was up all night crafting my strategy, and I have a very clear path going in. No, I don't have any strategy either. But yeah, similar. I have a bunch of different resources open that I want to look at, and it's kind of what do dynasty rankings look like? What do the stats look like at the halfway point here? What do the rest of season rankings look like? And what did draft rankings look like coming into last season? Because it'll be interesting to see how different those look. So I have all of those open to kind of review, but kind of the same thing. I wanted to do it in real time and kind of see how things are going to land.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. We'll see how it goes. And everybody can let us know in the comments who they think, went too high, too low, who had the better version of our way too early draft. But that will be the second part of the show. We'll start off with the news and notes. Can kind of go a bunch of different directions with this. I say let's kind of go in order of how the events took place over the weekend. So that would be starting with the MLB Draft. And I'm very into dynasty leagues. You and I play in the kind of a dynasty / deep keeper format together. It's my favorite form of baseball. I just like prospect stuff. So those are the leagues that I enjoy the most. So I really enjoyed the draft. Also, the Orioles were bad for so many years in a row that you get kind of used to caring about the draft. This year a little different with them not picking till 19.
I'll be there next year.
Yeah, probably. What's interesting, though, is unlike football and unlike basketball, these guys are not contributing for your fantasy teams anytime soon, by and large. Now, you have these fast-moving pitchers lately, like Chase Burns, Paul Skenes the year prior, who are moving very quickly. But by and large, these players that are getting drafted are years away from even being in the big leagues, let alone being impact fantasy players. So when you watch the MLB Draft, is there a type of player you're looking for when you're thinking about long-term dynasty stuff? Are you thinking like Cade Anderson, for example, went to the Mariners? Are you thinking, well, the Mariners have a great track record of, developing pitchers, so I'm really happy with that landing spot, and I'm more interested in Anderson now? Or a guy like Ethan Holliday, big power, going to Colorado, I'm sure he's going to hit well in Coors Field. Are you thinking down the line that far when you're thinking about dynasty stuff? Are you just looking at pure talent? Who did I think the best prospect was? How do you approach thinking about the draft with your dynasty formats?
So I'm kind of an impatient dynasty manager. I don't like to wait that long. So ideally, I want the everyone's going to want the Chase Burns who comes up quickly and contributes right away. But I also the first pick in this draft is probably not going to be someone I'm going to take. This kind of young high schooler who's a long-term project. That's not really going to be the fantasy target for me, unless we're talking generational prospects like Bryce Harper and Mike Trout, who came up and were in the big leagues at 18, 19 years old. But a lot of times I look at the path to the big leagues, how close are these guys to being ready? And so for that reason, I would probably look at a Cade Anderson, because he's probably one of the more not MLB ready, but looking at this class, we can talk about the class as a whole next, because it was I thought it was an interesting kind of a down year for the class, unless people who are smarter than me really disagree. It didn't feel like last year we had a bunch of high end talent that kind of went. This year you saw just how the draft played out. even the way people predicted the draft, there were a bunch of surprising picks in the top 10. And so it was kind of a down year for that. And I don't know, maybe this is the year I trade my first round pick and I don't worry about these prospects. But there are a couple that I like.
Yeah, there are definitely prospects I like. It doesn't feel like, like there was a couple years ago where like the top 5, I think like the year with like Walker Jenkins, Max Clark, those guys aren't in the big leagues yet, but just like a lot of really high-end talented guys. And again, we've seen some players move very quickly. Guys like Nick Kurtz were drafted very recently and are already making an impact in the big leagues. This doesn't necessarily feel like that kind of class. I mean, Cade Anderson is a good example of a guy that I think could move quickly. But like the number 1 pick, Eli Willits, is a high school guy. I don't anticipate him moving super fast. Ethan Holliday, a high school guy. So it's an interesting draft. I would encourage everybody to check out Welsh, who is an expert on all things draft prospects. Did an episode with Joe, kind of on their end of the feed about these prospects and first year player drafts and that sort of thing. So I would encourage everybody to go listen and watch that and get kind of a deeper dive. Our thoughts just from kind of the macro level are maybe not the class where you're trying to acquire these high-end picks in your dynasty format, or like in the league you and I are in, they'll be available in our salary cap draft in the spring. I probably won't be spending a lot. To give you a reference point, because it was before you had joined the league, Paul Skenes went for like $28 the year he was available. Jackson Holliday went for 12, I think, the year he was the number 1 overall pick. I'm not the type to really spend like that on prospects in those drafts, because I feel like I can get guys for cheaper. So I just feel like if Ethan Holliday's going for 10 plus, I'm probably not going to be in on that bidding.
Yeah, and I don't have it up, but I'm pretty sure in that league I got Chase Burns for pretty cheap, like $3 or something. Yeah. And that is paid off. I will also say, you mentioned the episode that Joe and Welsh did. Welsh also has an article up on FantasyPros.com on his first year player draft rankings, and he kind of breaks down the class and how he would rank them. I agree with a lot of what he wrote. I won't spoil all of it, but he kind of had a similar take to what I said at the top, that the way it broke down was kind of interesting, especially for fantasy, and that maybe this is, I don't know that, you would go for like an Eli Willits at the top of your fantasy draft, but, maybe you take a big swing on an Ethan Holliday because, the power profile is there. Even if it's not like a sure thing like we've seen in the past with like a Jack Caglione or Nick Kurtz, he has the highest upside. For me, it's like Ethan Holliday and Cade Anderson at the top of the class would be my top targets for fantasy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like it's Ethan Holliday unless you are in a position where you really want a fast-moving quality pitcher. In that case, you just go Cade Anderson. But I think unless you specifically are eyeing that profile, I think Holliday's probably the right pick. But he is not a perfect prospect. He's a very different prospect than Jackson, too, just in terms of his strengths and weaknesses. So don't think you're getting Jackson Holliday if you take Ethan Holliday, but obviously still a high ceiling, like no doubt about it. All right, so those are our quick MLB draft thoughts. Again, check us out, on FantasyPros.com and elsewhere on the feed for more of a deep dive there. The next event from the All-Star break, the Home Run Derby, which you didn't think you had won. We said we were doing total, home runs hit, and Cal Raleigh was the difference for you. So congratulations on winning that. He arguably shouldn't have even advanced. There should have been a swing-off in round 1. I hate that there wasn't. I don't understand why it's strictly who hit the ball the furthest. I actually didn't even realize that was the tiebreaker in round 1, and I despise that. Not just because it made me lose. Like, I hated it even in the moment that I was like, why is there not a swing-off? That would be so much more fun. Alas, that's the way it went. And even though the thing that was really frustrating me, and I was ready to come on and argue about your victory, is Junior Caminero left time on the clock in round 2 when he was just on a heater because he went second. I actually didn't remember any of these. I didn't remember that they switched to a bracket in the second round. This whole thing, I don't like that they keep changing the rules of this, and I don't really like this current setup. I don't mind having a limited number of pitches to make sure people aren't just taking every other pitch, but I don't like the time limit because I want to sit back and enjoy the majesty of these home runs. I don't like go. You gotta get as many pitches in as possible. So that was all kind of a bummer. At any rate, I was ready to argue Junior Caminero missed out on home runs that he should have had because he had to go second. And then he went second again in the finals. So even if he had won and I had picked the winner, he yet again was going to be able to stop and not keep hitting home runs to add to the total. So I was like, that's just him getting punished for hitting more in the first round. But then he didn't hit enough. Cal Raleigh won. So it was a clear victory for you, which I, will happily cede.
Yeah, I'll take it. And, as we talk about Cal Raleigh potentially winning the MVP, now he's also the home run derby champion. And even more importantly, I just saw today that he won the Mariners Golden Locker Award for having the cleanest and most organized locker. So just an all-time season for Cal Raleigh, just racking up the awards. And if he's not the MVP, we're talking about an all-time season here.
I have never heard of that for any team at any level, but great job for him winning that award. Do you like the current iteration of the home run derby?
No, I want to go back to. I don't like the current iteration. I'm like an old grump. I don't like the current iteration of anything. I want to go back to the outs version. I'm very alone in this take, but I want to go back to the All-Star game meaning something and determining home run, or not home field advantage in the World Series. I loved that. I love that the game meant something. I hate the way it is now. I have it on in the background, but it's like not must watch for me. I just like to watch having obviously all the All-Stars in one place. Although I could go on a rant about how bad the rosters were this year. I know you and I were slacking about that a little bit, and I was just ranting privately to you about how bad the American League roster was this year in terms of All-Stars. But yeah, I'm an old grump. I don't like the format of anything. I want the All-Star game to determine home field advantage in the World Series, but I think I might be the only person on earth who thinks that.
I kind of agree. Like, honestly, the All-Star game, the only thing that was cool was the swing off. I do like that. But the All-Star game is something I have on in the background while doing other stuff. Like, I had friends over to watch the home run derby, even though I don't love the current format. I just love the idea of the home run derby, and I enjoy watching it with people. And that is an event that I will care about and hope that it gets kind of back to its glory days. But the All-Star game is when an Orioles hitter is up, I'm looking up at my TV, which isn't on right now, but I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. Like, Ryan O'Hearn's up. When besides that, it's like, okay, cool. But the swing off, I did like. Did you enjoy that I certainly would hate it if that was in a real game, but for the All-Star game, I loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. I don't know that I hate it for a real game. I might be okay with that. It's kind of like the how hockey, instead of having ties, they do the shootout at the end. I don't know that I'm against it. I might like that more than the ghost runner on second rule, but I don't know, maybe not.
I actually could not more vehemently be opposed to it in a regular season game. It's so fun in the All-Star game and an exhibition. It would be so baseball is afraid of extra innings, and I don't understand why. I was tweeting about this on Tuesday night. All my best memories of baseball are extra innings stuff. That game that went 18 innings, or remember it got all the way to 12th inning. I'm I don't like that they're trying to limit extra innings with the ghost runner and let's just do a swing off instead. I want all the extra baseball, and I don't understand anybody who doesn't I get it that you don't want every game to go 6 hours, but as a random Tuesday night in May, and you're wow, I'm staying up I'm in inning 15. Those are fun. I did that once. The Orioles were in Seattle, and I was in college, so in Maryland on the East Coast, and I had an 8 a.m. class that I could not skip the next day. It was the only semester I ever had an 8 a.m. class, and it was twice a week, and it was totally unskippable. And I stayed up for an 18-inning game with the Orioles in Seattle. So I went to bed at, my time on the East Coast was 5 or 6 a.m. But I didn't care. It was a great memory and a fun, this is what makes baseball great, in my opinion. So I would hate it in the regular season. But super cool, and shouts to Kyle Schwarber for being a beast in the All-Star game version.
Yeah. Speaking of, and going back to the rosters, how was Jonathan Aranda one of the American League picks for that swing off? How did he make the top 3?
I know a lot of people left, and that was part of it. I also think Boone
also weird
was probably just pick the first 3 people he saw or something. I don't know, genuinely. It seems really odd. I don't know who was still there, and who he might have asked people, and they said, "No, I'm good." I've taken off my cleats for the day. Like, yeah, I'm done. But I don't know. I agree. It was a weird pick. We didn't even get to see Pete Alonso.
Schwarber goes 3 for 3, and it's like, here's Jonathan Aranda to save the day. And it's like, shocker, he didn't.
Anticlimactic. All right, a couple other news and notes here. You got some injury stuff on here for a couple of pitchers. Run us through those.
Oh, yeah. So a big one, Max Fried dealing with a blister. Not always a huge deal, but when you talk about blisters, that's the kind of thing that can linger. And so he doubled in his last start. He's unsure if he's going to pitch this weekend, but it seems like such a minor injury. We've seen blisters really like derail pitchers for like several weeks at a time in the past. And it's the kind of thing where you keep thinking that they're back from it, and it keeps popping up again. I think in years past, there were a lot of issues with the balls being changed, and we saw a ton of pitchers dealing with blisters, and it just almost derailed seasons. I don't want to be an alarmist and say that's going on with Max Fried. I think it's more of a minor blister, but still something you want to keep an eye on because, that's always scary. Shane McClanahan completed a short rehab start recently, and, his arm did not fall off. It seems like he's working his way back from that nerve issue. He only threw 36 pitches, but the fact that he's on a mound throwing after what we saw in, before the season started, when it looked like really, really, really bad while you were actively drafting him in our league. It's good to see him, and he's a potential someone we've talked about. We didn't talk to him. That would be great. Someone we talked about recently as someone you could pick up in the second half who could be a difference maker. And that was it for me. The last note here is about a trade that you're thinking about making in our league.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you kind of your opinion, since you're not in kind of that tier 1 of contenders, so you're not going after this player. So I felt comfortable kind of talking strategy with you. Basically, and this is a dynasty discussion, and deep keeper dynasty. It's kind of a little bit of both, but you can keep up to 14 players, so it very much feels like a dynasty, even though there's technically not like a first-year player draft and you don't keep the entire roster. But it's a very, very
must keep keeper. Minor leaguers.
You must keep at least 4 minor leaguers, so that's part of this. Basically, Ronald Acuña is $70 is his cost in this league. I have I'm actually not sure how to pronounce it.
For comparison, it's a lot.
Yeah, I think Mookie Betts was once like 74 in this league, but that's basically like the highest we've ever had in this league. It's a $300 budget, by the way. I know most people don't really care about the specifics. The main important question here that I want to talk through on the show is Ronald Acuña at $70, based on what we've seen so far, somebody that you think is worth giving up an elite prospect for? Because I have Leo DeVry is however you pronounce it, the Padres shortstop who's 18 years old, crushing it in high A. Still a couple years away, but I mean, he's going to be the number 1 prospect in baseball, I think, after this year. At the very least, he will be top 5 for the next couple of years, it feels like. And I have him for just $1. And eventually that cost will go up a few years into his career, but he's basically going to be very cheap for the next 5 or 6 years. And then even after that, still pretty cheap, assuming he's a good player. Would you trade a prospect like that for Ronald Acuña, who we have seen be the best player in fantasy at times? Obviously coming back for the injury. He hasn't been running as much. I mean, he only has 4 steals since coming back. Obviously, he's been hitting home runs. I'm kind of torn. I am the type of manager who typically does not like to move elite, young, cheap talent. I'm like, this is the core of my team going forward. Like, I want guys like Leo DeVry, again, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, for $1 in my roster. And the Padres are aggressive with these guys, so maybe he moves a little faster than I expect. But flags fly forever. I am a tier 1 team. I am not the best team in this league, but I'm clearly in the contending top tier. And the other factor here is if I do not make this trade, I know for a fact that the number 1 team, who is already clearly the best team in this league, will be getting Acuña. So what I want to ask you is, A, what do you think about this trade offer of DeVry for Acuña, given costs and everything? And B, how much, when you're making trades in keeper and dynasty formats, are you thinking about the fact that, this other player, this other manager who I'm directly contending with is going to get this guy if I don't, overspend?
So that makes it tricky, because that obviously context matters when you talk about a trade like this. If you're just talking about Acuña for DeVries, which is how you say his name, it's in Dynasty, you're like, wow, I'd love to have Acuña. But then you consider that it's $70, which in the grand scheme of things is prohibitive to keeping him. Like, that is just too, like, at most you keep him for 1 year.
Keep him.
Yeah.
Mookie Betts has been kept for $70 before, but it is like, okay, I'm now missing out on the opportunity for other talent elsewhere in the draft.
And the price
it's
goes
keepable,
up.
but it is like a lot. And he is, I believe, I believe he was sent back like this year, so his price isn't going up for a couple years. Let me double check on that. Or was he kept this year? He actually might have been kept. Oh no, it is going up every year. Okay, so he will be $75 next year, which is like borderline getting into not keepable, and like this is a rental.
Yeah, so that's where it gets interesting. And then in the context of this league, the best team is like by far the best team. He's clearing ahead. And so if he gets Acuña, it's almost like he's unbeatable. And so I don't know. I feel like in this instance I would go for it and just try to take my swing and hope that, you know, knowing your team, you already have a good stockpile of young talent. And so it's not like DeVries is your only good prospect. And so it's the kind of thing where context really matters. In this context, I think you're close enough to go for it, and that Acuña could put you over the top. And I believe you've already beaten him head-to-head once. Is that right?
I did earlier this season, yeah. Hey, so the team ahead of us in the standings, who's really, really good, he doesn't have good prospects, and he doesn't really have good depth either. It's just his starting lineup is very loaded. I think he's beatable, and getting Acuña for him obviously makes that more challenging. I guess what I'm curious about from your perspective too, and that's part of why I wanted to bring this up on the show, is because people don't really care about like my fantasy team, but I think they care about Acuña. Do you see Acuña as the type of player going forward? Because like in past seasons, this is a guy who's been, however many points per game, like 6.2 points per game in 2023. If the steals aren't there anymore to the degree we need them to be, that changes things. And, last season in 49 games, he had 16 steals. This season in 45 games, he has 4. And obviously 2 knee injuries. The OPS is over 1,000, right? He has 12 home runs in 45 games. Like, a lot of it's very good. He's not been a bad player, clearly. But if he's a 4-point per game player instead of a 6.2 point per game player, and is also a clear rental, does that sound worth it? Even setting aside the prospect that I'm giving up, setting aside cost, is Acuña somebody like that you think is the type of player right now, as he is playing this season, the guy that can, put somebody over the top to win the league? Or do you just see him as a good player but not an elite one right now?
I think he's still elite, and I think you're seeing it. I just think the stolen bases are going to be a little bit lower, which he has already said. He's probably not going to run as much. It's also possible, like he's only stolen 4 bases in 45 games. It could just be as he's working his way back. He's also 4 for 4 on stolen bases. It could just be the more he gets comfortable with this knee, being surgically repaired and not being nervous to run anymore, he might run a little bit more. And in last year in 49 games, you said he stole 16 bases. This year he's only stolen 4. But also last year in those 49 games, he only had 4 home runs. This year he's got 12. And he's batting .323. And we've seen him just come back. And it wasn't like before when the power was kind of zapped. The power is there. He looks like the elite hitter again. And so, yeah, you kind of stole the line I was going to say about flags fly forever, which, it's hard when you're, especially in like a dynasty or keeper league, when it can be so fluid from year to year, and you never know when you're going to really like be a contender. Like if you're in the contending window and you have an opportunity to go for it, it's hard to not pull the trigger, especially when it's, we don't know if DeVries is a sure thing. Like he's a top prospect, but Acuña is basically a sure thing, even though it's a 1 year rental.
I really like DeVries, which makes it tough, right? Like if it was a guy who was ranked highly as a prospect, but I wasn't like super invested in, I might feel a little differently. DeVries is a guy that I do like really believe in. So, that makes it like if it was just like, oh, you're not willing to give up in a vacuum, it's like, okay, you're going to pass on Acuña as a win now team for a guy that's not going to be in the big leagues for 3 years. Sounds silly. But if you really believe, I mean, this is how, like, I have a very cheap Bobby Witt Jr. in this league because I held on to him, and now I'm reaping those benefits, right? Like, same with Jackson Chourio, I got for cheap. Gunnar Henderson's been a little down this year. Same thing, I have him for cheap because, I held on to them when they kind of took off as prospects. So because that's been so successful for me in the past in building this foundation, it's hard to give up on that. I don't know. There's a lot to think about. I would love to hear what the commenters think on a trade like that, given what they've heard. I won't waste their time with that.
I vote Acuña.
Though. You vote Acuña. Well, speaking of Acuña, let's transition into our 2026 way too early mock draft. We're going to go through 2 rounds here. Acuña will certainly be one of the players taken in the first 2 rounds here. Let's say, because actually before we dive in, I want to let everybody know that we are giving away a Juan Gonzalez signed Rangers jersey courtesy of our friends at pristineauction.com. All you have to do to enter is subscribe to the FantasyPros MLB YouTube channel right now, comment below on any video, and that is it. We will be announcing one lucky winner right here on the channel, so make sure to turn on those notifications so you can know when new videos are up and to claim your prize. I think we should let you go first as sort of a reward for winning the Home Run Derby draft. But basically, we'll just alternate here. So you'll get picks 1, 3, 5, 7. I'll get 2, 4, 6, 8, etc., etc. And we'll go through 24 picks here, 2 different rounds. Does that sound good to you?
It sounds good to me, except that I didn't want to go first. I was hoping to not have to pick, but I will just go with the tried and true Shohei Ohtani. And I'll just take Ohtani first and just lock that in and just make sure I can't ever use my utility spot for an entire season.
I actually, I would be more inclined to take Ohtani if they just said, he's never pitching again. I almost just, don't want him. It's cool that he does it. It makes it more valuable in real life. But I'm like, that is kind of hanging over your head a little bit. And there are other elite players. So I should
have also checked, is this a daily lineup league? Can I use him as a pitcher? Because in a weekly lineup league, he will never pitch for me.
Let's call this weekly lineup, and do you want to call this Roto versus categories? I don't really care.
Yeah, we'll just do standard Roto weekly league.
Okay.
But that is interesting. I do have Ohtani in both kinds of leagues. In a daily league, I will not right now because he's only going 2 or 3 innings, but if he's back to being a traditional starter in a daily league, I will start him when he's a starter. In a weekly league, he never leaves my hitter spot. He's never pitching for me.
Yeah. So I don't know how you view this. So if Ohtani is the clear number 1, how big of a kind of a next tier do you view?
I don't know that he is a clear number 1.
Well, so, let me rephrase because I actually agree with that. I don't think he's a clear number 1. How many names would you consider for the pick?
I think that's hard to answer in mid-July because I think it'll depend on how the second half goes because you can see...
That's why this is way too early.
Yeah. So I think you have Ohtani and you have Judge. But then it starts getting interesting because then obviously Bobby Witt comes into the equation. I think Jose Ramirez is going to be locked in. I don't know that he's going to push for the top spot of it, but I think he's going to be locked in the top 5. But then based on how the second half goes... Is Crow-Armstrong in that conversation? Is Cal Raleigh in that conversation? So it's very interesting to see how the top, very tippy top of the draft goes next year.
I am going to go with the guy that I am most confident is going to help me in the most categories, and that's Bobby Witt Jr. with pick number 2. And I view this as almost the safest pick here, just given age and the categories he will help you in. I don't know that that's the right pick, actually. I could very easily see myself a year from now saying I'd rather have taken, Judge or one of these other guys. But right now, I feel like Bobby Witt Jr. is just the best at the most things. Even if Judge is going to hit more homers than him, and Cal Raleigh has the catcher eligibility and all that sort of thing. Witt has both floor and ceiling, and I'm just going to be really happy with every league that I start with him in it.
Yeah, that's fair. So at the 3rd pick, I'm going to go with a player I don't usually draft based on where I'm picking, but it would almost feel silly to pass on him at this point based on the season he's having. Aaron Judge, with the power and the average and all the other counting stats you're going to get from him. I always worry about him and injuries and his size, but he's stayed healthy recently, so alleviating some of those concerns.
He's also 33. Do you feel like he's the type of player who once it goes, it's going to go fast. I'm not like, obviously he's been so good this year. You're not anticipating a fall off next year, but like you get into your mid 30s. I know he's kind of like a freak of nature just physically, but at a certain point it does go. Like he's not as young as you might think for how little he's been in the big leagues.
Yeah, and that's some of that is because he wasn't like this like 101 draft pick who came up. Like he was kind of an unheralded draft pick kind of coming up who just, you know, outperformed his draft slot and turned into the superstar. And so he didn't have the same kind of like really, really quick path to the big leagues. I've said for a long time I worry about how he's going to age. I was worried about that. You know, if I was the Yankees, I'd be worried about that contract. But I understand they had to do what they had to do. They couldn't just like let him walk, especially with what he meant to that lineup and what he means to, you know, how popular he is in that city. You know, they just were not in a position that they could let him go somewhere else. But I do think the back half of this contract could get pretty ugly. It could be like a Miguel Cabrera kind of back half of the contract.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Fourth pick, a couple names I'm considering. This is maybe a little ironic, given that I'm not even sure if I'm going to be trading for him. But I think Ronald Acuña should be a top 5 pick as of right now. From what we expect him to be, you know, even further removed from the injury, so maybe more willingness to run, not 70 stolen bases again, but more willingness to run. The home runs haven't gone anywhere. Right in his prime, I think he'll be 28 next season, I think. So assuming that the second half looks really good and he looks even healthier and healthier, I think the lineup will be better next year in Atlanta too. So where do you think Acuña should have gone? Because I do feel like top 5 or 6 is like the right place, and maybe even low. Like if he looks like the Acuña of old, maybe he'll even be like in the conversation for number 1.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I don't know that he's going to go number 1 based on what we just talked about with the speed. Like if he only steals 6 bases the rest of the year and ends with 10 in half a season, it might be pushing it to draft him at 1 overall. I think at that point you'll see people lean more into like the Ohtani, the Bobby Witt, the Aaron Judge. But yeah, I think he's going to go top 5. I think he might be the player next year who has the biggest like difference in like average ADP, where, you know, and average ranking, just kind of the difference there, because you're going to see people are going to be nervous. Like there's two knee injuries here. Like some people just don't want to draft that at the top of the draft, and that's fair.
I think that's very fair. This is me kind of wanting to be aggressive and feel like I'm getting a superstar at the top, but I will not, as of right now, obviously let's see what the second half looks like, but as of right now, I would not fault anybody for thinking this is too high for Acuña.
All right. I was debating which direction I want to go with this pick. It's possible. And I also will want to say, like, part of this is like strategy of like going head to head in a draft, whereas like maybe I shouldn't be doing it thinking about it this way, but like for the fifth pick in the draft, if this was like my first pick, like 105 is my first pick, I don't know that I'm taking this chance. At least at this point of the season, we'll see how the second half goes. But this person is second in VBR already and is on pace for a 40-40 season. And so I'm going to go Pete Crow-Armstrong. And some of that is like strategy, thinking about what you're going to do next and how I'm building my roster. But Pete Crow-Armstrong, second most valuable player so far, and pushing for number 1, but also look, he's going to be top 5. I'm getting him at 5th.
I hope this isn't going to throw off picks you've made, but I don't see this as building a roster. This is like, these are 12 different managers, I think, that are drafting here. So, like,
yeah, that's where I said it's maybe the wrong way to think about it, but just also looking at value.
Like, I don't view it as like my team has Witt and Acuña. It's like just kind of where they would go. But
I'm drafting for the YouTube commenters. I want them to say that I have the best roster.
I mean, what PCA has done so far, it's hard to argue. It's just a matter of, you know, how replicable you think it is for him compared to some of these other guys who have done it longer.
Maybe it's an apology pick because we've kind of like downplayed his season so far. So I'm just I'm reverting.
I'm kind of torn between two players, so I'm just gonna go with the younger one. I think Elly De La Cruz should not fall to this pick. In a roto draft. Sorry, my computer's not letting me type. In a roto format, the steals he is giving you, he has 25 already this season and 18 homers and the best batting average of his career at 284. He's a stud. I think he should be a top 5 pick. And there's another player that I really like that I could have taken here, but I will happily take the value of the falling De La Cruz and get the power speed combo who's now hitting for average too.
Yeah, so that was the player I was thinking about when talking just about, like, you know, if we're assuming this is us going head to head and kind of like building a roster, it was like I want to get PCA stolen bases and potentially the other counting stats there. Assuming you might take Elly next, I didn't want to miss out on like both of them, kind of a thing. But now this gets really interesting because there's a player I really want to take, but we're also at pick 7 here, and there's a player that should not fall to pick 7.
Take who you really want.
All right, well, I'm going to go Cal Raleigh.
Nice.
I'm going to take Cal Raleigh.
I thought that's who you really wanted, which, by the way, might not be a terrible decision. It's not who I would have taken there because there's a player that should not be available anymore. It's Jose Ramirez, and I'm just going to take him
that's
next.
who I was talking about. Yeah.
I'm glad I goaded you into taking the other guy because Ramirez at 8 is the best value on this whole board. But yeah, I mean, Raleigh is like Pete Crow-Armstrong, where you're very much leaning into what's happening this season with these last 2 picks, and clearly buying into you're going to be drafting these guys like you're going to get something close to a repeat next year.
Yeah, and you could make the argument Jose Ramirez should have gone where I took Pete Crow-Armstrong at 5.
You could make the argument Ramirez could have gone as high as 4, I think.
Yeah.
I think he could have gone instead of Acuña at 4.
But I'm drafting on vibes, baby. I'm trying to build the most fun team here.
Clearly.
Right. Who's left? Anybody left?
Well, you're on the clock. So I took Jose Ramirez again. Great value at 8, just like consistently the best third baseman and contributes everywhere. And it's just like an absolute stud. 18 homers, 29 stolen bases, 292 average. Like arguably could have, like I said, could have easily gone 5 spots higher or 4 spots higher. So at pick 9, you're on the clock.
So here's an interesting one because I think there's an obvious pick here, but he's also someone who is going to be $300 million richer by the time you're making this pick next year. And he might not be on the same team. He might be on a different team. And those two things can sometimes scare me in the first round. You know, that you're drafting someone in potentially a new city with new expectations. We're seeing it with Juan Soto right now. And who just got paid. And, you know, sometimes, you know, you get paid. Maybe you don't have the best year yet next year. You already got your money. But I think the obvious pick here is Kyle Tucker, and so I'm going to have to lock in Kyle Tucker at the 9th pick.
Yeah, I agree. If you didn't take him, I was going to. Just having a great year in Chicago. Where do you think he ends up? Do you think the Cubs will keep him, or?
I think they should. I assume they will, but you know, it's the kind of thing where when you get to free agency, the kind of money that's going to get thrown around. I don't know. My fear is that he goes to the Yankees. My fear as a baseball and Red Sox fan is that he goes to the Yankees.
But not your fear as a fantasy manager.
No, I fear as a fantasy manager, he's not falling to 9.
I was going to say, this is a fantasy show, not a baseball show. We'd
a
be
baseball
thrilled.
show,
Yeah.
No, if he goes to the Yankees, he's not making it to 9. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to be the guy to take the pitcher. Skubal's just too good. I'm going to take him at 10 here. Do you think that's the right spot for the first pitcher?
Yeah, I think that's fine. I just because of like overall strategy and like what we've been talking about recently and like how you value pitchers, I was almost not even considering pitchers. But I think it's it also feels like just looking at the hitters we've taken and like kind of the tier where we're at, it feels like the right spot in that I think Tucker is probably the end of this hitter tier. And you know you're kind of picking between a lower tier hitter or the clear one of the top best pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is who you're going to take next, but in terms of just thinking about the hitters, like Juan Soto, I think you could make a compelling case belongs in that tier.
James Wood.
Slower start to the season for him, obviously, but like this quote unquote disappointing start for Mets fans, 23 homers, 11 stolen bases, 262 average. If that's his floor in New York, like I'm expecting big things next year when again, he's still like entering his prime, you know, realistically, or at the very least in it. So, I think you can make a case for him, especially with the 11 steals this year, that he does belong in that upper tier, but maybe are you going to go with him or are you going to go in a different direction?
I was thinking about him I was thinking about James Wood. Not to spoil my picks here, but I think he's in the tier. I think you're right. I think the 11 steals do matter because I think if we're looking at 23 home runs, 262 average, and like 2 steals, I think there's a big difference in the value that we're talking about here. But the 11 steals does help. Jackson Chourio. But again, like we're drafting now in July based on how the season has gone, and I don't know. I feel like I would want all these players over Juan Soto.
Okay, well, you're on the clock, so.
Okay, so I'm not taking Juan Soto.
Okay.
Now the question is, do I take one of the pitchers, or do I keep going down the hitter rabbit hole? And I guess I will go with everyone's favorite breakout, and I'll go James Wood. I'll take James Wood here.
I wasn't sure if Wood had become a first-round player. I think it's a great pick. I have nothing against it. I wasn't sure if he'd become a first-round player or if he would still be more like kind of top of the second. I think there will, as of right now, there will be leagues where he would get to the second because I don't think you can really make a case for him in the top 10. So it really just kind of becomes personal preference in those last 2 spots. Because I feel like personally the top 10 is pretty set with those 9 hitters and Skubal for me personally. I can't imagine taking Wood 6th. More power to you if you did. And also, I guess let me backtrack and say, if somebody is buying into significant regression for like Cal Raleigh, then maybe he doesn't belong inside that top 10, and you make the case for Wood ahead of him or something like if you believe in his breakout season more, then I could see that case being made. So I don't want to say that Wood doesn't belong in the top 10, but I was curious if he was going to go there or not, inside the first round. But I think it's a great pick. It's just everything he's done. I love James Wood, so I'm not going to argue with this one. Yeah. I'm gonna take Juan Soto, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, just for James Wood, just everyone was kind of predicting the breakout this year. We saw it. I talked preseason about drafting Meta's ceiling. Shame on me because he's currently, you talked about him going in the top 10. He's currently 10th in VBR in terms of fantasy value on FantasyPros. And that's thanks to 24 home runs. And we just talked about Juan Soto's 11 steals. James Wood has 12. And he's batting 278. And so the other thing that you and I have talked about is his power. It's to all fields. It's not just the pull power. And so, that I think gives him a higher floor going forward. So someone I'm potentially excited about, assuming he has a strong second half as well.
Soto, the stolen bases matter to me that he's getting more of them. I have no doubt about the power and batting average long term. So,
do you think he's going to keep running?
I don't know, but enough. I think he'll keep running more than previous seasons of, like you said, really not doing anything. He's already one off his career high in steals. Yep. I think he'll run enough to be in the double digits. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but I think he'll at least be in the double digits with what we've seen so far. And if you give me that and 35 to 40 homers and a high batting average, or high enough batting average, I'm happy.
Maybe he just really cares about fantasy managers and he knows he's not producing enough as a hitter, so he's running more. And that next year, if the batting stats come back, he won't run as much because the
batting stats aren't bad. He has 23 homers at the All-Star break, and his batting average is a little down. It's still 262 and
315 expected batting average, by the way.
Yeah, I don't feel like the bat's letting us down. It's maybe not like mega insane, all-time batting season, but it's not bad.
By the way, how many picks are we doing?
2 rounds.
Okay.
We said
I was looking at the sheet. We had a break. And are we doing 10 teams or 12?
No, 12.
Okay.
Yeah, the sheet got messed up in the formatting. We're doing 24 picks, two rounds of 12. So
okay.
So we are through round 1, and
why don't you recap us real quick while I update?
Yeah, round 1 went in this order: 12 picks. Shohei Ohtani, Bobby Witt Jr., Aaron Judge, Ronald Acuña Jr., Pete Crow-Armstrong, Elly De La Cruz, Cal Raleigh, Jose Ramirez, steal of the draft, Kyle Tucker, Tarik Skubal, James Wood, and Juan Soto. Pretty good first round.
Not too shabby. So I'm on the clock at 13. Correct. Are we doing or are we snaking?
That's a good question. I actually was thinking of just still alternating, but you're right. We should snake and keep the kind of the same quote-unquote managers. Let's do that for fun. So I'll be on the clock then to start round 2. I was not thinking about that. Pairing with Soto, I think there's a couple of names you could pick between. I am inclined in a real draft. I think I would make a different pick than the one I'm about to make because I don't think you're going to take the player that I would really take in a real draft.
Don't pretend like you know what I'm going to do first.
I said think. I didn't say I know. So I think what I will do.
Now, real quick before you pick. So you already said this. So you are considering this like the 12th team, and you're pairing with Juan Soto.
I am approaching it that way.
Okay.
Yes. Like I said, yes, that is the way I'm approaching it.
Okay.
Do you want to not approach it that way?
No, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify for our wonderful listeners.
I think I'm gonna go with the. If Juan Soto is the floor, I'm going to go with the ceiling upside of his former teammate, Fernando Tatis Jr. And like I said, this is probably not what I would pick if I was not going up against you, but that's what I'm picking here. So pairing up Soto and Tatis.
If you're not going
what do you think about
me. That? No, that's good. I've been kind of like I mentioned at the top of the show, bouncing around between current stats and the VBR and previous rankings. And so if you just go by VBR in the first half, he's 17. But he's also behind players like Eugenio Suarez, who are not going to go this high, no matter where they finish.
He's 10th in our rest of season consensus rankings on FantasyPros.
Yeah, that's unsurprising, even despite the VBR. So, I mean, that's not a bad pairing either, especially high ceiling, high floor for both of those players, assuming Tatis stays healthy, which is And so you went 12-13, paired Soto with Tatis. That means I'm pairing James Wood with this pick. So to pair with James Wood, I think I'll go back into the pitchers bucket and I'll go Garrett Crochet.
Okay.
To the chagrin of Chris Welsh.
Garrett Crochet. All right. That's I think a totally valid pick. Do you think Crochet is the right guy for SP2? Did you consider Skenes or Wheeler?
I did. I considered Skenes and Wheeler, and then it's too early at this point to make this pick. But I do think Hunter Brown's going to be in that conversation too. But just given what Crochet, Wheeler, and Skenes are doing, as much as I like Hunter Brown and believe in what he's doing, it's going to be hard to overtake them, barring injury. They look really, really good right now. But I'm a big Paul Skenes guy. I had him this year as coming into the year as SP1, but Tarik Skubal is making a mockery of that.
I think this is an interesting spot with Skubal because I think I would probably be inclined to take Skenes. I'm not somebody who really goes pocket aces. So since we are considering this as pairing them, I probably will go away from I think this is a spot where Skenes should be off the board, but I don't know if it makes sense to pair him with Skubal unless that is just your strategy of pocket aces, which is totally valid if that's kind of the way you like to do things. There are, I think, as many as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think you could make a case for 7 hitters here, honestly. I mean, do you see a clear standout hitter, or it feels like a real group of, are you buying a bounce back for Gunnar? Lindor is great, but another year older. Chourio taking another step forward, maybe. Mookie Betts, is this just a down season? Vlad Guerrero, best first baseman available. I feel like there's a lot of different cases you could make here. Do you see that too, or do you have a clear guy?
No, I see that too. There is one guy that came to mind first, just as highest, not I don't want to say highest ceiling, but that I'm most excited about.
Yeah, these guys all have high ceilings, right? Yeah. You can paint a picture for any of them as really smart picks here. I think what I'm gonna do, I'm actually really torn. This is a really fun exercise because it is teaching me that I see a really big group here, and I don't know that I would have assumed that going in. This is kind of why I like doing it, shooting from the hip.
Do you consider Caminero in this group?
I'm probably not taking him yet, but I wouldn't say you're wrong for considering him especially like given how difficult third base is, right? I'm not considering him with this pick, but I think it's reasonable. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, this is just a fluke down season for Mookie Betts and take him. I know he didn't play a full season last year, so this is now 2 years in a row where the counting stats maybe aren't as good, but we know what this guy is at his best. And, the Dodgers, there's always going to be opportunities for runs and RBI. And I'm going to say that he kind of goes into next season fully healthy and we get one last kind of elite season out of him. Maybe not one last, but I'm going to go with Mookie Betts here. Does that feel too early for him given what we've seen this year?
It makes it, I mean, yes and no. It feels a little early based on the down season we're seeing. We're like, I need to see a stronger second half from him in order to take him this early. But also, like, if he had a great season to be a first round pick, and we're already at pick 15, so it does feel fair. But I'm a little nervous.
We're imagining going into next season. Like, again, he started off this season weird with the sickness. Like, it's just like it just feels like he has earned the benefit of the doubt of I'm willing to look past this kind of fluke bad year and hope that it is just a fluke.
Yeah,
and he's a lot lower in rest of season rankings, so this might actually be a reach. I'm not saying that it's not, but I think all these guys are again justifiable. So I want to go with the guy that's been the best for the longest and count on this being a down season.
Yeah, there's a lot of worry there. He going into next season, he will be 33, as you mentioned with Judge, and there's also the possibility that we're seeing the downturn. So in 2023. He played 152 games and hit 39 home runs. Last year, he only played at 116, but he only hit 19 home runs, so not the same kind of pace. And so it's and this year, 11 home runs in 89 games. So it's possible we've seen that power. We're not going to see that 30-plus home run power anymore, which we only saw it like a few times before anyway. He kind of has floated between that 20s and 30s home runs power. I don't think we're seeing 39 anymore, even in that Dodgers
What I'm
lineup.
more worried about is the risk of he's not going to run. And he's only has 6 stolen bases this year, so like if he gets me like 26 homers and 15 stolen bases and his batting average is back to 300, like I'm okay with that. But if he's in the single digit steals total and low 20s homers and the average is like that's where it starts to be like, okay, this is like a significant reach. But maybe this is buying a little too much into name value, but I have made the pick, so it's locked in.
Yeah, and we don't have to spend much more time on him, but there is, when you just look at, granted it's only half a season, but if you look at the numbers, there are some concerns. He's batting 244.
Yeah. I'm not focused on this season's counting stats in making this pick. This is me saying it's a weird start to the year, weird year in general for him. Like we're counting this as a fluke. To me, if you want to paint the case of this being a concern, it's last year.
Yeah, because the counting stats are down, and his expected stats are a lot of them will all be career worst as well, and so he's earning it. All right, but we can move on. I could tell you want to move on. You don't want to, just sit here.
No, it's just we don't want to spend
pitch.
10 minutes on every pick.
I know you're regretting the Mookie Betts pick already. So you paired Mookie Betts with Skubal, is that right?
Yeah.
So now I'm up with the team who picked at 109 and picked Kyle Tucker. And so for me, I'll make it quick, and I just think he shouldn't have fallen this far, and I'll pair one of the top hitters with one of the top pitchers, and I'll take Paul Skenes off the board.
Yeah, Skenes would have been my next pick for sure. If I didn't take Skubal with the 10th pick, I would have taken Skenes. Like I said, I just didn't want to go pocket aces, but I would have taken him a pick before if we were just drafting in a vacuum. Correct pick, I think.
Thank you.
I don't know that I want to take another pitcher here in Wheeler. I don't know that I'm going to take another pitcher this whole mock draft is my point. Even though I do really like Wheeler, obviously, just like another year older, that's hard. And there's so many good hitters that I like. I'm gonna count on a bounce back from Gunnar Henderson. I don't think it's too far. He was a first rounder very easily a year ago. He's still very young. He's still very good. A lot of the batted ball data is very promising. He's hitting the ball hard. He's just not lifting it a lot. I think he gets back to his. Remember, he also started the season weirdly getting injured in spring training and then kind of working his way back against Major League pitching. This is just buying into the talent, what we saw last year, and I'll just take Gunnar Henderson. And again, I kind of have the floor of Jose Ramirez that I'm pairing him with, and now I'm kind of getting I think the ceiling again with Gunnar Henderson.
All right, so you paired Jose Ramirez and Gunnar Henderson. I am now up at 18 with the team that at 107 I took Cal Raleigh, and so I could go in a couple different directions here, but I also think this player should not still be on the board, and that's Jackson Chourio. And so I like the idea of pairing the power of Cal Raleigh with the speed and power of Jackson Chourio to start a team.
I could have easily taken Chourio instead of Gunnar. Again, I think this is kind of a big group of hitters, and I think that's a totally good pick. I want to let everybody know before we finish up the draft, if you're struggling with lineup decisions, our lineup assistant recommends optimal lineup suggestions to maximize your team's performance each day or week. Just sync your league for tailored guidance based on your roster and league settings. Download the Fantasy Baseball My Playbook app or visit fantasypros.com/MLB to set your winning lineup today. I'm back on the clock, and I will take a guy that I considered a couple of picks ago. Really, a lot of these guys I've at least considered for a couple of picks. I know the batting average hasn't been very good. Corbin Carroll is only 24 years old. I know he's got a bit of the wrist injury stuff right now, but this is a guy that in general, going into next season, barring anything unforeseen this year, I'm going to be expecting 25 homers and 35 stolen bases and hoping for a batting average bounce back, even though this is 2 years in a row of a low batting average. I just think the talent's too good. And again, in a roto format with the steals, I just think back half of round 2 is a perfectly great place to take him.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think he's been on the missing the word here. He's been available for too long in this draft. As someone who coming into last year, he was like a consensus top 5, top 3 pick. There are some injury concerns there. I shared those coming into last season. I don't have any shares of Corbin Carroll, but yeah, I think 19th pick, second round, like mid to late second round, is just way too long for him to be on the board. That's the word I was looking for, on the board.
Yeah, I mean he's on his 162 game pace this year is 42 homers and 22 steals, and I think the steals is the one that we're more confident would bounce back in the future. So like again, a 25-35 season is selling him short from what the ceiling could be. So I think if the floor is you're at least getting power speed combo and the ceiling is like a top 5 player, which is what it is, I think this is a good value. And I'm pairing him with Elly De La Cruz, so that's a lot of power speed.
Yep. Yeah, I was going to say that. You're pairing him with Elly De La Cruz. So I'm now up, and this is pairing with Crow-Armstrong, who went at 105, maybe a little early, but, projecting the superstardom. So I did take a little bit of a risk with that first pick with Crow-Armstrong. And so now, do I want to pair it with an elite pitcher and kind of build the floor on the pitching side, or do I want to further cement my offensive floor? I think I'll go offense, and I will go with... I already have some of that speed. Do I want to... I'll go Lindor, Francisco Lindor.
Good player. And a good floor pick to pair with somebody like Crow-Armstrong.
I'm a little nervous about batting average because there's a chance that like I just drafted like 250, 260 hitters, which was my one hesitation there. But I do think you're locking in a lot of power speed and a good enough batting average really early on.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good pick. We're starting to get into the territory of feeling like you're taking a step down with who's available. I'm looking around. It's like we're in the territory of there's a red flag somewhere. With Zack Wheeler, it's age. With I don't know how far down you're looking, but a guy like Ketel Marte, you're not getting any steals. A guy like Trey Turner, the power hasn't been there this year. And he's also into his 30s now. So how long is the speed going to be there? Julio Rodriguez has been like a slow starter, for so much of this time, but he's 14 homers, 17 steals at the All-Star break. Low batting average. I'm like kind of talking it through because again, there's kind of like downsides for a lot of these guys. Somebody who's having a very a good season is Manny Machado, and third base is so difficult. 17 homers, 8 steals, 292 average, but he is another guy into his early to mid 30s now. He's 33 years old right now. Like I said, I'm kind of talking it through because I think there's a lot of different options. I think what I will do, and this is pairing with Ronald Acuña, is, and I didn't expect to do this, I'm going to take Zack Wheeler. I'm at the point with Zack Wheeler where It's almost like Derrick Henry in fantasy football. I'm just going to ride this thing until it burns me, right? Like, I don't want to be the one. I'm not going to keep predicting when he's going to fall off. He's been so good for so long. It does concern me, his age, but I mean, this is several years in a row of being a real fantasy ace, like one of the 5 best pitchers in fantasy baseball. I'm just gonna let him burn me one year, and I'm gonna keep taking him until he does. So pairing him with Ronald Acuña, that's a low ceiling if he does hit the age cliff and Acuña, has injury issues, but that's a high ceiling. It's a low floor, high ceiling. I'm sorry.
I feel like you tricked me saying you weren't going to take any more pitchers. I just, filled up my strategy knowing I was like, I can just take Zack Wheeler a little bit later.
I planned to not, and then in the moment talk again. This is we're figuring this out in the moment. I kind of realized actually I do.
Yeah, no, I think it's the right move. I do think, especially when you start looking at like pitching tiers, you need to but locking in, like you said, like that ceiling floor of a Zack Wheeler, especially pairing it with someone like Acuña, I think makes a lot of sense. So you paired Acuña and Wheeler, and now I am up with the team that was 103 that took Aaron Judge, and so I have a pretty high floor, high ceiling there. And who do I want to pair him with? So if I want to go the pitching route, there's Hunter Brown and there's Max Fried, and I feel like those are probably the only 2 in that tier, and you could argue that Hunter Brown is not in that tier yet. Vlad is someone I consider, but he's not having the stats I would want to take this early. Like, we're not seeing the power, so I don't know.
Yeah, I thought about Vlad the last couple picks, but I'm like, it's just not happening, and I don't know. Yeah. Vlad was a tricky one for me to decide on.
Yeah. I want to go Junior Caminero. That's, I don't know. It makes me a little bit nervous, but, there is a lot of power at a very weak position there. I'm taking too long to make the pick here. You know what? Just give me Junior Caminero. I'll take him.
Okay.
I'll take the plunge. I was not in on him this season. I'm correcting the mistake like I did with Crow-Armstrong. I'm going back.
My last pick, I have Bobby Witt Jr. as the guy I'm pairing this with. Man, I am torn. As it have been for a couple picks in a row, because there's a lot of guys that I think are pretty close to each other. There's
what
guys
about
like
Kyle Schwarber? Is he someone you would take? I can't take him with the next pick because that's the Ohtani team. But
I am just somebody who typically does not like that strategy. As good of a hitter as he is. I mean, dude is 30 home runs this year. And, I'm not even saying that I'm correct in that stance. I just don't typically go for guys like Schwarber, at their cost. But that's just a personal preference.
I just wanted to bring it up because I cannot take him with the next pick unless there's 2 utility spots.
Yeah. No, it's valid. I think you could even scroll down and look at like I'm not taking him, but I wouldn't fight too strongly against somebody making the case for like Jackson Merrill and just saying like, listen, he's had injury issues this year and that's why everything's looking really bad. But as a rookie, as a young rookie, 21 years old, he had 24 homers, 16 stolen bases, and a 292 average, and just kind of thinking a step forward from that is the most likely outcome for next year. I don't think I'm going to take him, but I wouldn't fight against it.
I'll be real quick, but do you want to see, I have like last year's draft rankings up. Do you want to hear some of the top names heading into last draft season that are still available? Just a few of them. So scrolling through the list, Julio Rodriguez, Yordan Alvarez, Bryce Harper.
I will not be taking Yordan Alvarez.
Jared Duran, Trey Turner, and then your Jackson Merrill, Freddie Freeman, Jazz Chisholm, Ketel Marte, Austin Riley, Logan Gilbert.
I mean, there's good players there.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, the highest in our rest of season rankings available is Vlad.
Yeah, and I think he's too high there.
It's just so hard to take him with what the season has looked like, I think.
I agree.
I mean, Trey Turner, you're getting steals.
I think you say the same thing with Trey Turner. Yeah, you're right.
I also have Bobby Witt Jr. on this team, so pairing shortstops, I could do it, right? There'll be an infielder spot, but I probably won't. Julio, just betting on the talent. Pete Alonso, if I wanted to go a different first baseman.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I mean, I feel like I can't take him based on what we've seen, but I do really like Jackson Merrill a lot. Tell Marte just like getting the best second baseman is appealing.
Would you consider Max Fried here?
No, if I was gonna take a pitcher, I would take Hunter Brown.
Okay.
Like unequivocally, I like Brown better than Fried for sure.
Okay.
So I don't think I want to take a pitcher, but if I was to take one, it would be Hunter Brown 100%. I think I'm gonna say he's too talented and young enough that there could still be a step forward, and he was a high pick. He's had a 30-30 season on his resume. I'm going to take Julio Rodriguez. I think he can't get out of the second round, just with the talent and age alone.
Wow.
Do you think that's the wrong pick?
No, I just think you already talked about it. There's a lot of uncertainty there. He's also he's been, it's kind of fluky, but he's been a second half player. So there's a world where we're heading into next draft season and his numbers look really good. And you're like, wow, he had a great season. Forgetting that like the beginning of the season was
I mean,
bad.
his poor first half is still 14 homers, 17 steals. And like the average is 20 points lower, but his average the first 3 years was 284, 275, 273. This year it's 252. So that looks like the outlier. He's been a 20-20 guy every year of his career. He's going to be that again. He's been a 30-30 guy once, a 25-25 guy twice. So I feel like the floor is actually higher overall maybe than you would think with him. And the ceiling is very clear and apparent too. So I think like him getting out of the second round would be crazy. And like pairing him with Bobby Witt Jr. I feel really good about.
Yeah. So I'll be really quick again, but I'll just hit some of the before I hit the top draft rankings of players heading into last year's draft that are still available. Now I'll hit some of the players through the first half of the season have been the best statistically that are still available. Number 9, Byron Buxton, not taking him here. Number 11, Kyle Schwarber. I already said can't take him on the Ohtani team. This is the 101 team that is now, pairing whoever this player is with Ohtani. Trea Turner. Riley Green is an interesting one. I don't know that I would take him this high, but he's having a very good year. 24 home runs, 284 batting average. Eugenio Suarez, not taking him here. Seiya Suzuki is an interesting name. Pete Alonso, Manny Machado, you already mentioned. Kristen Yelich, not doing that. And then I think you kind of get further down into different kind of tiers. And so, assuming this, this team, I'm making 2 picks, but we're not going to, go past this pick. But this, in this, turn, I would be making 2 picks. So I think one of them would be a pitcher. And so I'll take Hunter Brown. I'll take Hunter Brown as the final pick, and then
tell us who would the hitter have been if you said, okay, Hunter Brown will be the first pick of the third round, just so we know who would the hitter have been.
That's where I kind of was struggling. I think just based on the what we've seen so far, and he's having a really good year. Although, I don't know that I could really trust it based on the injury stuff. I was gonna say Seiya Suzuki would have been the pick, but
really,
I don't know. I'm not a big Ketel Marte guy. Manny Machado is gonna be a year older. Bryce Harper, I'm not gonna do. So yeah, I feel like it's kind of a weird area. Yeah, I think it probably would have been Seiya Suzuki.
That was not my guess.
What was your guess gonna be?
I don't know that I really had one, but it was not that. I was thinking more like a guy that we had ranked in this way coming into the year, like the previous list you read, like guys that were here a year ago and we're thinking, oh, they just had a little bit of a down year, or somebody like not saying Vladdy, but like a Vladdy or somebody like that that we expected to be here. Would have been my guess.
Yeah, I don't
Duran,
know
maybe. I mean, probably not, but
yeah, I think Durant's having a down year. He's not gonna.
Yeah, I mean, all these guys that were in this range a year ago, like in the spring, that we're not taking, are having down years to varying degrees, or are older and we don't expect to maybe like Manny Machado is having a good year, but like is he having this kind of year that you expect him to do this as a 33-year-old next year? Like I don't know.
Yeah, I mean the answer could have been or would have been Jackson Merrill, but we're not seeing the kind of second year we were hoping for after that breakout rookie season. So it was hard to trust him in the second round either.
But that's also injury based too. Like I feel like next year I'm gonna be really happy in any draft where I get Merrill in the third round if that happens. And maybe that won't happen based on how the second half goes. But as of right now, he obviously didn't make our top 2 rounds here. But I'm gonna be stoked to buy low next year, I think.
And he was 23 consensus going into last year, so he would have gone right around here.
And is going to be 23 years old next season.
Yeah, but also 7 home runs in 64 games after hitting 24.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're buying on it being a down year. I think my one regret,
one stolen base.
I think my only regret from this is I do think I reached on Mookie Betts as I talked through it. But the rest, I'm really happy with the values I got. Like I think Jose Ramirez 8th, Soto 12th. You getting Skenes 16th, I think was great. I would have taken Skenes ahead of Crochet, honestly. Although I think it's a coin flip. Like I'm not saying you're wrong for that. It's just the direction I would have gone. Like Gunnar, from pick 16 to 19 being Skenes, Gunnar, Chourio, and Corbin Carroll is like. That's really enticing. And then even after that, Lindor, Wheeler, like that range of the mid-teens to the early 20s, I think is really strong.
Yeah, and I took PCA early, knowingly, but he's going to be a fascinating one going into next season, seeing how the second half goes, because he could go as high as like top 4, top 3, or if he falls off in the second half, he could fall to the back end of the first round, maybe out of the first round.
I think a few of these guys, you could say there's a chance they could go like Acuña. I think could go higher than 4 if he has a vintage second half. I think Julio could go a lot higher if he has what he usually does in the second half. Gunnar and Chourio, I think, could go higher. I think Caminero could fall off. I mean, one of my bold predictions last week was that he has 40 homers, so I don't think he will, but I think he could. James Wood, I could see falling out of the first. He's not falling out of the second, but I could see him falling out of the first.
Yep.
Cal Raleigh, if he slows down, I think he won't be a top 7 pick, but yeah, some of these guys could move around a bit. I think the top 3
even if he falls off, he's still going to be
Ohtani, Witt, Judge is the easiest part of this whole draft.
Yeah, even if Cal Raleigh falls off, think about going into next year. He's going to be a catcher with a good average, 40 home runs and some stolen bases. Like someone's going to take that in the first round just because they want to be done with catcher and not have to worry about it anymore.
And they're maybe not wrong about that. That's a totally viable thing. He's 28 this year, so it's not like he's like young, but he's not old either. He's not one of these guys in his 30s that you would expect to see fall off. But I think we'll just be expecting general statistical regression, right? Like it's just gonna be hard to repeat it. All right, let's get into our 2-start pitching competition quickly because we went pretty long on this. It's currently tied. That includes the home run derby win for you. So it's 6-6, and then we had 1 week that was a tie. So we've each won 6, and then there is the tie in there. And that, by the way, I very easily gave myself the win for the last full week we had. Christopher Sanchez, 33 fantasy points. Hunter Brown, just 2 for you against Cleveland and Texas. This week's
second round pick, Hunter Brown.
Yeah. So what we decided to do for this week, because obviously, like, rotations aren't totally set yet as of Thursday morning when we're recording this, and it's a weird week where we have this weekend and this upcoming week. So what we're doing is Mayer and I have each picked a pitcher that has been announced to be pitching this weekend, so we can be reasonably confident they are getting 2 starts, including this weekend and then all of next week. So rather than try to play this game where we try to guess, because like some teams want to give their best pitchers like a little bit of extra rest, it's just hard to tell what direction it's going. So pitchers that are announced to pitch this weekend, we are assuming we'll get this weekend and then at least 1 more start in this upcoming week, and therefore will be 2 starts between now and next Sunday. That will be our approach with it. There was not a super long list as of the time we're recording this of guys that have even been confirmed to pitch this weekend. So it might sound like worse pitchers than, we usually have some aces in here, but the guys that were announced we either had already used or were not very good. So my pick is Nick Pivetta. He gets Washington, and then we think the Mets next week. So one really good matchup in there. Mets have been up and down. Pavetta's been good this year. I still remember we had the guy predict he was going to lead the league in strikeouts before the season. That was one of our commenters' bold predictions. So yeah, I'll go with Pivetta.
And I'm going to go, and just to further cement your point, looking at the announced schedule for this weekend, less than 50% of pitchers have been announced. So there's a lot of TBD and undecided on the schedule. Yeah. So I'm going with Nathan Eovaldi, who is lining up this weekend to pitch against the Tigers, and then he should line up to face the Braves in his next start. So not the easiest of matchups, but the Braves have been down, and they will be without Austin Riley. So I'm going with Nathan Eovaldi.
All right, Pivetta versus Evaldi. I'm on a real winning streak here, by the way. You have not won outside the home run derby version of it. You have not run a 2-start pitcher week since week 8. I won in 9. We didn't have week 10 because both pitchers only started one game. Week 11 was our tie. I won in week 12. I won in week 13. So we're on a little worm run here, but broken up by the home run derby. So
I had won 4 out of 5 heading into week 9.
Yeah, but it's a game of runs, like basketball. Yep. So, all right, we'll go ahead and wrap up there. Appreciate everybody tuning in for the episode. Let us know what picks you would have made in different spots in that 2-round mock draft. If you would have taken a guy earlier or lower, let us know who didn't get drafted that should have been, who we might have just forgotten. It's totally possible. Like I said, I wanted to do this shooting from the hip rather than strictly laying out a big board. So maybe I overlooked somebody. Let us know if we did. But yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap up there. We'll get back to our usual 3-part episode next week. It'll be myself and Mayer through the end of July. And then we'll be having, I believe, Kelly stepping in for me in August. So a couple more weeks left of the dynamic duo here. For Mayer, I'm Ryan Wormeli. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.